Hey guys, so today I want to do something slightly different. I want to do a non-scripted, sort of more off-the-cuff video because today's topic is a bit more hard-hitting. I want to talk about the harsh reality of being an artist in 2024. And whilst there's some incredible pros of being in the music industry at this time, there's also some really big negatives, some really big cons. So I want to kind of acknowledge that. I want to talk about why that is. And more importantly, I want to talk about how we can navigate through that and around it so that we get all of the pros, but we're getting a lot less cons. So hopefully this style will not be sort of too boring, but then hopefully it won't be so jarring. So I think the big thing here is the music industry has changed a lot over the last 10 years. And I think that doesn't necessarily mean it's better or worse. I think there's some real positives. I just think it's different. I think there's some really good bits that have changed. There's some bad bits that have changed. And it's just different. And so rather than us harping on about the good old days and the good old years, I think we just need to acknowledge it for what it is. The music industry has constantly adapted throughout the age, and it's always tried to keep up with technology. It's tried to keep up with consumption habits, try to keep up with gatekeepers who've had the power. And I think when music became digital, there was a big power shift. Artists suddenly had a lot more control. They had a lot more power, across the world, because they're able to distribute music completely for free, which was never the case. If you look back in the day, you needed the gatekeepers. There's no way you could afford to put out music when music was just physical, because you're talking about millions of dollars. And who could just go, yeah, don't worry, I'll just go and print hundreds of thousands of CDs and have the distribution network to be able to push it out and be able to afford the recording, all of that kind of stuff. It wasn't feasible. And then all of a sudden, artists suddenly have so much more control to distribute, to find fans in new territories, the ability to monetize your art 24/7 as well, to be able to monetize your art whilst you are sleeping. That's, that is stuff that 20 years ago, artists would have dreamt for that. They would have dreamed of the day that you could just be like, God, how much control do I get? This is incredible. Things like social media, you have the power to communicate one-on-one with fans, not just like put out a statement, put out an advert, go to press. You can talk to Jeff in Toronto who really loves your music, and you can actually chat with them. You can tell them about your music and you can monetize through it. You can tell them when you're on tour. You can even kind of use the audience to figure out what's working and optimize on what works and what doesn't. You've got music providers like Spotify, and I know there's a lot of artists that hate the Spotify model because it doesn't pay enough, but I don't subscribe to that. I think what would have happened back in the day was you would have got your music into a shop, into a store. The problem is that doesn't necessarily mean your music would stay in that shop or stay in that store, not unless you were a huge artist. So back in the day, if you were U2, yeah, of course your music's going to be there for the rest of time. But if you're an up and coming artist, you're going in, does it sell? If not, ship it back to the label. You are done. Simple as that. They don't have the store space to be able to hold hundreds of thousands, if not millions of CDs. And so there's this rose-tinted glasses idea that music industry was much better back then because you would pay for music. But it was, the actual distribution was much harder. So Spotify's done an incredible job of providing your music so that someone across the world can discover you and find you. You've got playlist curators. You can talk to playlist curators and you can actually, discuss why your music isn't getting on the playlist. I mean, it's unbelievable. You've got instant advertising, like instant. You could actually do an advert right now on Facebook or other platforms like Instagram. Press a button and all of a sudden your music is being advertised in that second. It's like, that is unheard of if it was 20 years ago. You've got home studios. So, instead of going to a big studio to make an album and it costing you, $2,500, $3,000 a month, you're like, well, I can do it at home. I've got all the plugins. Doesn't necessarily cost me anything. You've got video production. Like back in the day, you'd have to spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on making one music video. And now you can make a mini music video every single day just with having a decent phone. And, not even lighting. I mean, you've got a big ball of sun in the sky. Like, these things are such incredible pros to today's technology and today's industry. And so your career is now completely in your hand. But with this control and power comes this massive dark side, because everyone has the same control, everyone has the same power. So now the space is noisier than it has ever been. You know, we hear these reports that 100,000 tracks get released every single day, and you're now responsible for literally everything. Everything goes through you, unless you're signed to a label or a management that helps you. On the whole, the up and coming DIY artist is in control of everything. Back in the day, it was a really simple concept. Not to say it was easy, but it was a simple concept, which was you write the music, you create the music, or you record the music. You have to get that music in front of the powers that can help. In other words, the gatekeepers. If you can get your music in front of the gatekeepers, then it's just as simple as, is your music good enough? Do they think it's good enough? Do they think they can scale it? If yes, it's like, come in, you'll sign your life away, and then all of a sudden it's like, let's get this out there and let's start to build. And you've got a team. So you're like, well, I've only got to get from, A to, compared to now, A to A.1. We're not going A to B. We're just going down the road. If I can just get to that gatekeeper, and that gatekeeper is like the man from Del Monte, he say yes, all of a sudden it's like, hooray! You forget about once you sign the deal, then it's like, oh, actually it's quite hard once you sign a deal because there's so many other things that can go wrong. But the first step is just get to that point. Get to the point where the record labels say, or the gatekeepers say yes, at which point you have ticked the first major box. Nowadays, it's not like that. Nowadays, it's very, very different. Now, record labels get a bad rap in general, but the reason why record labels have always existed and always will, and always should, by the way, always should exist, is because of skill set. Because as artists, it's all very well saying the labels take loads and loads of money. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, true, but the labels take a lot of responsibility. And so not all artists, but a lot of artists want to say, look, let me just do the thing that I love. You wouldn't believe how many times I hear this. Just let me do the things that I love. Let me do the writing, let me do the music, and everyone else can take care of all the rest of it. Well, yeah, that's the really tough bit. That's the shit bit. That's the bit where you have to live and die by the decisions that you make. And so therefore, those people are going, I can do that, but it's not a one-person job like you being an artist. It's a lot of people. And so if you don't need that, if you say, look, I can do that myself. I can do my own distribution. I can do my own promotion. Then all of a sudden that gives you leverage that allows you to either bypass labels or to negotiate a really good deal. But to be a creative, to be an artist, to be a storyteller, that is a huge skill that you have. And it's very inspirational for people who don't have those skills to look upon you and see this sort of creative brain, creative mind, an artist who is a leader, who stands for something, who represents an audience. To bring that music to life is a different skill in itself, but that's an incredible skill to be able to say, look, I've got this vision, and to be able to get that, onto an actual recorded audio that people listen to and actually connects with them. The distribution and the promoting of your message to the world, that's a different skill again. So all of a sudden, just in this aspect, we've got three very, very different skills where you've got to be the inception, the creator, you've got to be the storyteller, the message, you've got to stand for something, you've got to be the brand, you've got to distribute, you've got to promote it. And that is just one aspect. And that's one tiny aspect of trying to be an artist in 2024, because then there's the music production. Now, music production potentially could be free. But that doesn't tell a full story, because it could be free if you spend a lot of hours learning another trade on top of your writing, on top of your, on top of being a musician and songwriting and arrangement and stuff like that. So for most artists, even if you can produce, which is a big ask, you've still got the instrumentation, you've still got the mix, you've still got the master. So then if you say, I'll do all that in-house. So now it's like, well, I've got to be a producer, an engineer, I've got to be a mix engineer, I've got a master, I've got to do the instruments, all the programming. This is a huge amount of skills, and we haven't even finished, because the reality of the time is most people can't make a full single or a full album on a home studio. So then they have to go into a recording studio, which is going to cost them money. They're probably going to need a producer, even if a lot of artists can produce themselves. A lot of people will say, no, I'll need a proper producer, a proper engineer, and a proper studio time. All of these things are costing more and more money. So whilst money struggles will affect your ability to make music at scale for most artists, not for everyone. But for social media, the promotion is relentless. It's like you might say, look, I can't make a song more than once every 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 3 months. Great, no worries at all. I understand that. But social media, see you tomorrow. That's the game we're in. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. You got to show up. It's got to be consistent. And that brings a whole different set of skills, because back in the day, you document your journey. That was like not even that long ago when social media came out. And by the way, social media as we know it, from like the beginnings of YouTube, might be 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. But in the way that we use it right now, when it comes to how we trigger micro content and everything else, you're looking at 3 to 4 years old, and that's for the early adopters who joined TikTok in, just before the start of the pandemic. For most people, they've been doing it for two years. This is a very, very new way of promoting it. And so we've gone from documenting a process, which is, look, I'm an artist, I'm a writer, I'm going to go on tour, I'm going to do gigs, and then I'm going to document that process for social media. We've gone to this idea where you are now your own production company. You are the be-all and end-all because, like it or not, the buck stops with you, and you are a production company as well as a promotion company. And once again, that brings a whole new, unique set of skills, because now you've got to be a videographer, which means you have to understand framing, you have to understand lighting, you have to understand the concept, you have to understand pace. You have to be the editor, because once you've actually videoed it, it's like, well, now we've got to edit it. We've got to do the color grade. We've got to make sure that the edit inside it, the text that's going on the screen, which means you've got to be a psychology expert. It means you've got to be a script writer on top of that. And the content needs to be every single day. Like, we are literally making this every single day. And to make it harder, not only that, but you're not just making it every single day for one platform. Everyone's saying, no, you've got to be on Instagram, you've got to be on Facebook, you've got to be on YouTube, you've got to be on YouTube Shorts, everything. You've got to be on X. Like, the whole thing is crazy. And then you've got to be short form and long form. And we're at a point where we're about to go into mid form, and everyone's thinking, well, hang on a minute, what's mid form? Everyone's fighting for the middle. YouTube seems to have got long form sewn up. TikTok seems to have got short form sewn up, Instagram Reels and Facebook Reels as well. But that bit in the middle, everyone's fighting for. And so that's where everyone's going to be promoting over the next year. And it's like, oh no, now I'm back in the 3 to 4 minute range where I was in the 20 seconds or the 10 minutes. Like, it's such a crazy thing that we're trying to do. And then on top of that, after socials, well, you've got to be a bank. You've got to be the bank. You've got to be the entrepreneur. You have to be able to monetize. So then you're an accountant as well. So therefore, you're looking at, you're now a merch designer. So you've got to design the merch. You've got to design the website because you've got to sell the merch. You've got to be the store owner. You've got to be the customer support person, accountant, bookkeeper, and that's just for the merch as well. That's not for, that isn't just for everything. That's just for a merch store. Then you've got touring. Touring's harder than ever because of the costs that are going into touring keep going up. Doesn't necessarily mean people are going to pay more for tickets. I mean, literally, my wife was like, oh, we're going to be in New York and Morgan Wallen's playing. Let's go and see Morgan Wallen. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. She's like, yeah, tickets are $350 each. I nearly shit myself. I was like, what? What's he doing? Is he just us two? Like, what's going on? $350 for a gig. Mental. But at the same point, those massive artists, yeah, they can afford it. But like, when you're an up-and-coming artist, how are you going to afford the travel, the accommodation, the petrol? Like, everything just keeps going up. And, you're trying to balance the books. And so therefore, you're trying to be a live agent. Because if you go, I haven't got a live agent. No, I'm the live agent. Oh, okay, well... All right, well, can we get a tour manager? No, we can't afford a tour manager. I've got to be the tour manager. Okay, well, can we get a tech? No, we can't afford a tech. No, we can't afford a tech. You're going to have to be the driver. Like, you're the driver, the technician. And then it comes to doing the merch. We need to sell merch, stay on the road. Oh, well, you're the merch stand operator. And while you're there, by the way, you need to be doing socials every single night to show in the world from a social proof point of view that you are out there and you are doing all this awesome stuff. Like, it is utterly relentless. And then what makes it completely worse is whilst you're lying in your van or in your cheapest motel, travel lodge type of accommodation, probably with 2 other people in a room with you trying to save money, and you can't sleep. You've also got to be your psychologist. You've got to, you're your own counselor. So the mental health support officer isn't there for you. It's crazy. So for most artists, this is just the daily grind. This is just the way that you have to have this kind of this idea of being an artist in 2024. And it's not just relentless, it's physically impossible to do everything. And so, that's the downsides. Like, the upsides is you do have all of the control. And for once, you can actually, if you can make this work, you can not only monetize and be in control of the money, which, let's face it, 20 years ago, record labels would take everything. You can be in control of your own business. You can be in control of the money if you can make it work. And there's the big if. So if we are going to do that, what can we do to stack the odds in your favor? So instead of this idea of like, I need loads of people to come in and I can't do all of these things, what can you do? What can you do to stack the odds in your favor? So fear not. There are 3 things that you can do today to make a huge difference to stack the odds in your favor. Those 3 things we're going to talk about right now. Number 1 is setting expectations. Number 2 is prioritization. And number 3 is building a routine. Now, I don't want this to sound like some kind of like Stephen Bartlett video, but these 3 things do make all of the difference when you've got so many things on your plate that you are trying to divide your time into. So let's look at those 3 things. Let's start with setting expectations, which I think is such a huge part of being an artist, because most people or most artists have a creative brain. Now, the positives of having a creative brain is all the best bits. Like, you can create. That's inspirational. You can do things that 90% of the world just can't fathom, and they will adore you because of it. The downsides is all the other stuff, is the anxiety, is the overthinking, is the perfectionism, is the paralysis by overanalysis. All of that side of the brain isn't so helpful when you're trying to be a creative. So setting expectations is probably, in my opinion, the most important thing, because we're not just saying this is what needs to be done. We're giving things a time frame. We're saying, look, what are we trying to do? A creative brain tends to work forwards. A practical brain tends to work backwards, i.e., a practical brain will say, well, hang on, where are we going? Let's plan the route. A creative brain will say, let's get in the car. Let's just go. We'll figure it out on the way, which is great, except if you're trying to get somewhere, it's a tough way. If you're going the wrong way, you're like, oh, we've taken a wrong turn at Albuquerque. All of a sudden, we've got to turn around again. So therefore, we're trying to bring in some kind of structure to avoid all of this stuff being too overbearing. That's the purpose of setting expectations. Because most, and I don't want to sound like all musicians have this, but there's a slight ADHD nature brain of, if I'm going to prioritize, it's now, it is not now. Those literally, it's either now or it's not now. It's either now or later. There's no planning. It's just, I'll get to it or I'll do it this minute. And so we're trying to scale Everest here. Like, we're looking at this crazy big mountain and we're just going, right, I've got to get to there, to be, have a career as a successful artist that people will spend their money and they'll adore you. I mean, this is a tough thing. Can be done, absolutely. People scale Everest all the time, but we are looking at from the bottom of Everest. We are looking up, and so the problem here is if we're trying to scale Everest after an hour in the gym, and we've got a piece of Kendall mint cake and a bobble hat, then we're going to struggle. Okay, so we're not setting these expectations. So what we have to do is we have to set realistic goals, realistic targets, and more importantly, we have to use that practical side of our brain, even though I know it's not natural. So here's what you need to know, right? Is we don't need to get to the top of Everest. Getting to the top of Everest is too much. We're looking at the top from the bottom going, this is too much. What we have to do is we have to get from A to A.5. If B is the top of Everest, we don't need to do that. We need to get to A.5, which is not even halfway up the mountain. It's probably about a third. Because if we can get to almost base camp, if we can get to that point at Everest, which is the toughest bit, they will be there. Everybody will be there. And the reason for that is because you've put the proof in. You've said, look, I can do this. I'll show you I can do this. I know I'm early on in this journey, but I've got to a certain point and people will recognize that and say, we can scale this. And if you can build it to A.5, the managers will be there. The live agents will be there. should you want them. The labels will be there, should you want them. The entrepreneurs or the banks will be there, should you want them. Everyone will be there. They're not hanging out at B. Because B is when you're Coldplay or the Foo Fighters or Adele or one of those massive artists. Like, do you want a record deal? Like if you go to Coldplay, do you want a record deal? No. Why do I need a record? I've done it. I've got to B. What we've got to do is get to 8.5, which is probably 8.3. But if we can get to that point, then it's like, that's when you're going to get picked up. That's when everyone's coming in being like, hey, this is new and exciting. Do you want to be on my podcast? Hey, this is really exciting. Do you want to do a collab? Hey, you and I, we should do some recording together. This is where the opportunities are. So the hardest part isn't to get to B. The hardest part is you've just got to get to 8.5, probably 8.3, and so if B is millions of streams and fans and a manager and monetization, then 8.5 is where everyone's going to meet you with a bus, to take you there. Not that a bus goes up Everest, but so therefore we have to prioritize to get to 8.5, not prioritize to get to B. Okay, that's the difference here. That's where prioritization matters. So what's the most important thing that you can do right now? And it's not the music. That's the crazy bit. Everyone's like, oh, if the music's good, it will take care of itself. Yeah, but you're talking about the highest of high echelons. You're talking about when you say, hey, if the music's that good, it's going to take care of itself. That's where it's like, it's got to be groundbreaking. And how many artists are making groundbreaking music compared to how many artists are making really good music? And if you've got really good quality music, then you can build an audience. But it's only the groundbreaking, change the world type of artist that's going to do this all themselves with, just shit or bust with a bit of luck. So it's not the music. This is I guess when people say about it, it's all about the music. This is the Hollywood bullshit. This is if you build it, they will come. It's like, it's utter nonsense. If you build it and people start talking about it, and then they start turning up, and then the rest of the people will follow. That's social proof. That's social currency. Did you hear about it? Yeah, I saw it. It was really good. Oh, I want to go as well. And then I'll take some pictures. I'll put it on social media, and it grows. That's virality. It's a very, very different thing to just build it and it will come, and they will come. So how do we build proof? That's what this comes down to. Okay, we've got to try and build proof to show off, I guess, to show off your talents, to show off your songs, to show off your ability, and to show off your message to the world. Because that's what you are. You're a leader. You're an artist. You've got to show off your message to the world. So we have to make good quality content online, as we talk about on this channel all of the time. That is the start. Because how do you prove it otherwise? Because if you just go, yeah, I sold 1,000 CDs, then people go, that's amazing, by the way. Because back in the day, if you sold 1,000 CDs, there's a good chance you're getting signed to a major label. Nowadays, if you sell 1,000 CDs, most of the labels are going, what are you doing with CDs? Like, what's going on? Nothing against people who buy CDs or who are in a genre of CDs, but I'm talking about when we're trying to get to 8.5. Like, we are trying to put the proof in, and so therefore that comes online. That's where people will be there because they can see the trust. So it's really, really important. And if that doesn't work, what we have to do is we have to go all in on socials. Like, we have to go all in on socials and improve the socials that we have. For me, the key to your socials are very, very simple. This is a puzzle to be solved. So if you are a strong enough artist, if you believe in your music, if you believe in your songs, then we're looking at all the bits and saying, look, all the pieces are here. What we've got to do is we have to wrap this up in a certain way. That's what socials are. We don't have to recreate the wheel. What we've got to do is we have to wrap something up that the algorithm and the consumer understands, because if they understand it, they'll want more of it. If they want more of it, they will get more of it, because that's the way the algorithm works. And all of a sudden, that starts to build momentum. So because this is like a puzzle that needs to be, I guess, built, we need to optimize. We need to make content in order to figure out what works and what doesn't. Now, what most people are doing is they're just making content for the sake of content. They're just kind of going, and here's me at a gig. Like, we have to understand what social media is right now. Social media is, there you are, there you've gone. Simple as that. There you are, there you've gone. And in between you and in between what someone's watching and where you fit in, they might be watching or looking at the biggest influencers in the entire world. They might be looking at Ronaldo, Kim Kardashian, I don't know what big influencers, but whatever they're into is right there, puppies falling off a door, and you're in there. Like, you've got to compete with those. Very, very different to the way it used to be, which was like, I get my subscribers, I get my followers, and they will probably be informed when I make some content. So this is a tough ask. So we have to play the game by making the content in a certain way that fits in with the narrative of what the platform, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, etc., what they want, and wrap it up in a way that people understand, which means things like context. It means things like hooks. There's a lot of those aspects that you are in control. You are a lot more in control of than you think you are. This is why I argue with people about music videos all the time, because we are at base camp and we are looking up trying to get to 8.5. When you get to B, make as many music videos as you want. But at this point, if you make a music video, where's it going to go? It's going to go to YouTube. Okay, well, in which case, now I've got to make content to push people to go and watch my video on YouTube. If I'm doing that, I might as well push people to go and listen to music on Spotify, because now I'll make content to push people to YouTube so they watch my music video so that they go to Spotify. I've just complicated it, and it's cost me time, and it's cost me money. So once we've got past 8.5 and we're at B and you're Foo Fighters or whatever it is, like, do we want? Like, it makes no difference. Be Taylor Swift, go and release 31 of the same songs. Doesn't matter. Like, you've done it. You've got past 8.5. People will be there. People will trust you. So same thing when it comes to ads. Like, every day I'll get a question about ads. I'm thinking about the technology, the technical aspect of ads, and what should I do with ads? And I'm like, 2 years ago we would have had a conversation about ads in a very different way. Whereas right now, ads are very simple. You make content. If that content works, you can put money into that content. If your content doesn't work and you put money into it, the platform doesn't know what to do. So the platform's struggling at the best of times. So what's the point in putting ads out? Because people hate ads now more than they've ever hated in their life, and they're being battered around the head with them all the time, when we can just make really good content that hopefully will get organic reach, potentially hundreds of thousands of views. And if it doesn't, but it does relatively well, we can still push that out to the right demographic. So, I think things like, another thing that people do is albums. Like, people are like, I haven't got time for all this stuff. How am I supposed to do all of these things? And then they go, I've got an album coming out. And I'm like, well, you're not helping yourself. Like, why are you making an album? I mean, singles are better for discovery. Albums are better for monetization. So if you've got 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify, absolutely, make an album. That's the right thing to do. But again, we've got past 8.5. So why are we making an album? Why are we making things hard of ourselves? So this is where the priorities comes in. We've got to make sure that we are prioritizing the things that will take us to 8.5, 8.3, where people will believe in you. That's when the opportunities will arrive. Now, in order to do that, that's where the third thing comes in, which is a routine. And this is tough because I know I'm dealing with creatives, and I feel like I am more practical minded than creative, probably why I was a bass player, than I am creative minded. But I'm, work with creatives and musicians all day, every day. And I know that routine is tough. I'm not expecting everyone to go and be the most organized person in the world. But, going back to the start of this video, it's tough to be everything to all people. That's just incredibly difficult. But with realistic expectations, only doing the most important things and then trying to move the needle, the routine is what to do, how to do it, and how to improve. Now, you building this, I guess this routine is your formula, but I guess there's two things. Do you use a calendar to plan out your week is the first question I would ask. And secondly, is your week consistent? And by consistent, I mean, apart from making minor changes because you've got to go to the dentist, are you using a calendar? And are you consistent? Not just changing things around, because that's what creatives do. And I've just made something. Now, next week, I'll create something completely different because the creative brain has stepped in. What we want to do is we want to utilize your creativity on the most important things. Your music, you as an artist, your message, all of those things. We don't want to be creative when it comes to the practical stuff like calendars and, all the different colors of a calendar or the routine itself. We don't need to be creative with that. We need that to be boring, mundane, consistent, going round and round in circles, which allows you to put the creativity into the thing that matters the most. Which always brings me back to what I think is the most important thing and where I start everything. In DKMBA, in the roadmap, which is like 8 hours worth of material, the first thing is like calendar. That's the first thing I want to talk about, because why would we go on to anything else if we don't have the calendar? The calendar is the bit that keeps you accountable. The calendar is the bit that tells you what you need to do and when. And you start figuring out how much time you actually have. When you're just doing things throughout the day goes really quickly and you're doing a few bits. You realize how much stuff you can get through in a day when you actually start putting it in, not a to-do list, into a calendar. And you say, look, social media, I'm going to batch it. I'll do like Monday from 5 till 7, 2 hours. I'm like, I could pretty much get your entire month's worth of socials in those 2 hours. But we don't think like that. We just go, oh yeah, no, I need to make a piece of social media content. And because of that, it takes 3 hours, because we're sitting there thinking, what do we fancy doing? Where should we go to do it? What should we do? How should it look? Instead of going, no, I'm going to go to the place. I'm going to purposely design some social, and I'm going to do that 30 times. And I'm like, there's my month's worth of content. I can easily knock that out in Monday afternoon or Monday early evening. So batching content is keeps you or your calendar keeps you accountable with all of these things that you are putting in. And this is just as much about what you don't do as it is what you do. And that's right, I said do. But the calendar is so important for taking stuff away rather than adding stuff in, because you're just asking yourself that question, which is this thing that I'm going to do going to get me to A.5? I don't need to get to B. Like I've got all of the time in the world once I've got to 8.5 to enjoy the process of being on the way to B with help and support and money, etc. How do I get to 8.5? To me, that's where you do need the routine. You do need the accountability. You do need to have the prioritization, and you do need to set these expectations. So I feel like it's a tough time to be an artist in 2024, but at the same point, there are so many amazing opportunities out there that have never been afforded to artists in the same way as now. Like we're about to see the emergence of AI. It's very easy to see the negatives in AI, and I'm genuinely terrified about what AI is going to do to the music industry. But at the same point, there are so many positives to being able to help with the ideas or the areas that you are struggling with. And so what we've got to do is we've got to take the positives of this time, of your generation of making music. And then what we have to do is we have to utilize all of the stuff to make sure that we aren't being affected by all of the negatives. And if we can do that and work at baby steps to get to 8.5, to build the proof, to build the audience, if you can get one true fan, then you can get 10. Like if you can get one person who just goes, I love what you do, then you can get 10. And if you can get 10, why can't you get 100? And if you can get 100, why can't you get 1,000? Like why? Because the hardest part is getting one person to go, this is so good that I totally believe in you. Then I'm like, great, well, I just replicate that. It's definitely good enough. Now I've just got to get out there. So it's a tough time. It's stuff that affects me and what I'm doing and my team are doing on a daily basis. And it's stuff I'm always thinking about. But I truly believe that the place that you start from a practicality point of view is that is the prioritization, the routine, and setting expectations. Anyway, I know this is a really long video and I've probably been waffling, but I just wanted to do something which is a little bit less edited. So let me know if you like the style. If you do, maybe I'll do some more of these. If you hate it, just go. But thank you so much for watching. And if you want to do me a favor, just drop a comment down below, because it does really help the algorithm for YouTube. Otherwise, have an amazing time. Stay strong, and I'll catch you soon.